If there's one profession where you really have to look like you've got it all together, it's politics. You live much of your life in a fishbowl, and any problems can adversely affect not only you, but also your party and leader. That's been a tough maxim for Lisa MacLeod to follow for the past several years because, and she'd be the first person to tell you, she really hasn't had it all together. The 17-year veteran MPP from Nepean has been very brave in acknowledging she has been suffering from mental health issues, which forced her to take a leave of absence from her job last year to get treatment. She hopes by going public with her struggles, she may be able to help others. And Lisa MacLeod joins us now here in our studio. It's great to see you again.
Thanks, Steve.
I got to tell you, you look terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, so well done. Let's go back. At what point did you start to think to yourself, Lisa, something is wrong and I need some help?
Well, truthfully be told, I think it was probably during the Minority Parliament between 2011 and 2014. And the only reason I say that now is I recognize I was losing my hair. And I was probably in a state of mania, but I definitely knew between 2014 and 2016 I was dealing with depression. And then in my first year as a minister in government, it took taking on a number of complex files that were very controversial.
Autism.
It ended me up visiting the Ottawa Hospital and getting in touch with a psychiatrist and dealing with a whole host of issues, which I'm still dealing with now. Having said that, after a couple of years, and in particular dealing with a very serious crisis during the election, it was really high time that I had to understand exactly what I have. I knew it wasn't unipolar depression. I knew it couldn't just be attributed to some of the trauma from round-the-clock police protection. My mood wasn't stable, and I had some very serious self-harm thoughts. So that's when, working with, honestly, a team, my family physician, my family, some very people that are close to me, a psychiatrist, understood that, I'm bipolar. Or as Frank Sinatra would say, 18-karat manic depressive.
You're always allowed to quote Frank Sinatra on this show.
Okay, thank you. And so then I just thought, okay, here we are. I've got a diagnosis now. This magic pill, whatever they're going to give me, in my case, lithium, is just going to cure me. And then it doesn't work either because, you have to, it really is a cocktail that works for you and only you. It wouldn't work what works for me, for you. And so over the last several months, it's been trying to find that right, prescription or cocktail or medicine and quantity that will stabilize me and put me on the path to success.
The convention, it's interesting is the wrong word. Unexpected, maybe. It's unexpected, I think, for people who watch Queen's Park to think that you would be going through this because you've always been considered one of the toughest customers down there, right? You really bring it during question period, and you are a tremendous performer. And I'm wondering, at some point, did you say to yourself, damn it all, I'm Lisa MacLeod. I can't be going through this. I'm one tough customer.
Well, look, I have to be very honest. I'm very angry that I have to deal with this because I told you I may cry, but, I didn't get elected in 2006 at 31 years old and say, oh, on my bingo card, I'm going to have a massive meltdown and, end up in hospitals trying to figure out what I have. I simply didn't. I really enjoyed my time in the cabinet. I enjoyed my time in the front bench in opposition. I love being at community events. But some days I can't get out of bed. And, that's really tough. And can you imagine, the worst nightmare for a politician, especially when you're going into your sixth campaign? You're actually in the middle of an election campaign with your psychiatrist taking layers of you away and trying to depoliticize you as a politician. And that's what happened to me, for my own health and safety and for the well-being of my family, was going through the last 2 weeks of that election campaign, learning how not to be a politician while I was competing to keep my job. it was hard. And then of course you have all the noise around you, right? The social media, and then you're not responding to media, and so everything just starts to become this big pile, this big mountain that is a burden on you, and you don't really know what the heck is going on. And we were still going, so you can't really tell anybody because you're still trying to figure out what is really wrong with me. And
Do you think you know now?
yeah, I mean, I think the diagnosis has been extremely helpful in the sense that I can see people who've succeeded with having the same diagnosis. I can see that there's a path forward with medication and therapy. So I think that that's helpful. But there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, as much as I want to talk about this because I think I have a platform and an ability and a podium to do so, I also think, you know what? I'm 48 years old. Like, what's my future going to look like? Will people vote for me again? Will people hire me? What do my daughter's friends' parents think of me? Because I have mental illness.
Do you worry about that?
Yeah, I'm only human.
We thought we planned for almost everything here today, but I didn't plan for a box of Kleenex. So I'm going to ask one of our people here in the studio. I think it's in the works right now to have some Kleenex brought out of here.
I try to maintain a sense of humor.
So we don't have to. There we go. David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you think about not running again in the last election so that you could focus exclusively on what you needed to?
Yes. I knew after we went into our last lockdown, and as you'll recall, I dealt with the hardest hit sectors.
Cultural industries.
Yeah, all your festivals and events, all your hockey games, all your hotels and restaurants. So at one point that sort of did hit. And then I'm from Ottawa, so we had that convoy, and being, you know, a regional voice at that time, and somebody who was working with my counterparts at the municipal level, and then looking at what it did to exacerbate what was happening to the sectors I had been responsible for, I just didn't know if I had it in me. And I had already knew I was in depression, and I wrote myself a letter on February 23rd that said I wouldn't run. And then everything went so quick, and I ended up in the election, and it was a very tough one. It was my toughest of my 6, and I still won. But like I said, none of this was on my bingo card. It wasn't like, oh yeah, let's spend our whole life, our families, sacrificing weekends and holidays, just so in the middle of it all, it'll blow up. Like, none of this was by design. It just ended up being a byproduct of my health.
You had the best line when the convoy came to town. Do you remember what you said?
Just go home, please go home.
You got up in the legislature and you said, "You've made your point. Thank you. Now go home."
Yeah.
Which I guess eventually they did, although they got some encouragement from the Emergencies Act.
Yeah.
What did that whole convoy thing do to your mental health at the time?
Well, I can't say that was responsible, but I can say, you know, I would get from my constituents, you know, the use of the flag. People would be concerned. I would get from my own daughter. As you'll recall, some of our schools had to have a bit more safety. She was in grade 11, she's grade 12 now. You know, a bit nervous when they would see some of the upside down things. And so it's just, Ottawa was not the boring little place that you all love to call your nation's capital. And it was our home. It's where we live. It's where we pay our taxes. It's where our kids go to school. It's where we go to hockey games. That's where we live. And you know what? It's one of the frustrating things that being an Ottawa MPP is everybody sort of takes ownership of the nation's capital, and we're happy to do that. It's every Canadian's second hometown, but that's where we live. And they came in, and it was just, it was tough.
You're married and you have a daughter, and I wonder what your mental health challenges have done to them over the time that you've been fighting this.
Yeah, guess that's probably the one that breaks my heart, including for my mom too, is, you know, Joe's very involved in my electoral campaigns. He was actually the one who told my psychiatrist that I've been living with this bipolar, and he had seen it for many years. And so it's been very difficult on him. Because again, I'm sort of the textbook, open it up, and you know, as much as I'm here right now and in a good space, you know, I'm ill and I have to manage that. For my daughter, that really breaks my heart. You know, she's young. When I told her I was bipolar, she goes, "Oh, duh." So she sort of knew.
She knew.
She knew before I did, apparently. But she, you know, she's seen it all. She's had the protesters run after her and yell at her. You know, she's had to go to events with me where the police protection is. We've had to have our home stem to stern kitted up with a security system that I would never wish on my worst enemy. She was there for all of the death threats, and you know, the worry that we would have. And then she would see the you know, and I put them together because there is a little bit of trauma from, there's a lot of trauma from the constant police protection and the threats, and how I reacted because I wasn't resilient, and how my daughter felt about all of it.
I would assume she's extremely proud of you for fighting through this.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a pretty remarkable little girl. She learned how to walk on the stairs of the legislature. She was a page at one point. Now she's going off to university, all while I've been doing this.
I presume one of the things one learns when one goes through something like this is who's really in your corner and a true friend you can count on, and who's not. What have you learned about that?
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by some people and disappointed in others, but...
Name names.
Well, I don't think that would be fair. Maybe I'll be charitable to the ones that have gone above and beyond, like my friend Steve Clark, and got me on to Duolingo, so I'm learning French and blowing through it, but him and his wife are always there for me. Todd Smith is always there with a call, making sure I'm doing okay. My buddy Yasser Nakvi texts me every once in a while. I gather he might be running for the leadership of his party.
Now that's interesting. You mentioned two Conservative cabinet ministers and a potential Liberal leader. So this is a nonpartisan thing. People have been good to you from all parties?
Oh, I would say generally. I mean, I've been disappointed with a few from the other side, you know, who would say to me I deserve the death threats or whatever. I think that the rhetoric, we've got to be above that. But I've had some people that I could rely on. Like I had Michael Parson, my riding on the weekend, and he was just very kind, and I had him meet with some stakeholders, and everybody's been pretty good at generally getting me back. But you know what? Also, it's politics, and so when someone is weak, it's a great opportunity for someone to get ahead, or put their point of view across. And I still am working through a lot of that. But you know what? I have to, in order for me to move forward, be able to forgive those people.
People kick you while you're down?
Oh, yeah.
You're laughing because that sounds like an incredibly naive question, right?
Yeah, I remember in the summer, one woman came over to me. She was incredibly intuitive, and she said, "You know, the world isn't yelling at you." And because I always had this view, particularly the last 4 years, that everywhere I go, like there's a mob of people that hate me and are yelling at me, and I'm getting insular and more insular. And then I stopped leaving my house for a while. Then I thought, I can't do this. So then I went and I spent some time with some Buddhist monks outside of Renfrew and just outside of Perth in Ottawa. I've been doing a lot of Chinese medicine. I'm just trying to really find myself and be as forthcoming as possible, but not vicious and forgiving. I think that that's the only way I can move forward, and I don't know what forward looks like.
I think when you and I spoke on the phone a little while ago, you said former mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, was really kind to you along the way.
Yeah.
Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
Tim Hudak, former PC party leader.
Yeah, I'll be seeing Tim tomorrow.
Also in your corner.
Yeah.
What do you?
It's quite a Rolodex, actually, of people, but they're, they're politicians. They've been dealing with it too. Perhaps they just don't have the diagnosis I do, so they can be a bit more even keeled about it. But for me, there's been some people that have really let me know that I can get through this.
You're going to forgive my curiosity, but I am interested in the other side of this. You don't have to name names of those who've disappointed you, but do you call them on their bad behavior, or do you challenge them when they say unkind things? Or what do you do?
I don't know. I haven't. Is it worth it? I don't know. I think where I would rather focus on that one, Steve, is actually bringing more understanding into the political arena about people who might be in crisis. And I'm not the first one. I was talking about Patrick Brazeau the other day, and somebody who was appointed to the Senate.
At 36, I think.
He had a tremendous pedigree. He had a lot going for him, and then he didn't. And then everybody just sort of piled on him, when maybe instead of piling on him, he just needed a hand up, because now he's quite successful and he's moving forward. So I think that maybe and I don't think that there's going to be a fundamental rethink. I mean, this politics is politics. I understand that. But I think that there's ways that there might be safer environments for people who are struggling. And keep in mind, we could have a Northern Ontario MP whose sibling passes away and then has to leave their family and be here for 5-6 days, and they have no support network. And think about a member of parliament coming from British Columbia going to our nation's capital and being away from their family when their child is sick. And I think that we have to find ways, and we should have that conversation on how we best support them. And the second, and I'll be the first to say it, we have to bring safety back to politics. I know the feds talk about it, we talk about it. There should be no protests at Kathleen Wynne or Doug Ford's homes, or Sam Oosterhoff's, or mine, or Christine Elliott's. That's off limits. And I think that there's some real concrete things we can do to make the place a lot safer for both our physical and mental health.
How have your constituents been to you through all this?
Well, they've been good. I mean, I got elected young. They've seen my daughter.
We say young. I think you were the youngest Tory, federally or provincially, ever elected in Ontario history. Isn't that right?
At the time.
When you were, yeah.
Yeah, I was quite young, and I had the baby, Victoria. So it was, we've broken some barriers for sure. But they've sort of watched me grow. And they've elected me 6 times, so they've, I think, supported me. But I think a lot of them too, they recognize, instead of the work maybe you guys saw when I did gas plants or when I was a minister, they see me as raising money for the food cupboards, talking about mental health, being a soccer or a hockey coach, being a parent volunteer at the school. Those are, I guess, the different things. And it's an incredibly high growth area too. So I work quite a bit with the cultural communities, some of whom don't talk about mental health. And so that's been interesting as well.
You got I'm trying to remember now. You got elected for the first time back in 2006. You were an opposition MPP. You were ambitious. You wanted to be in government. You wanted to be in cabinet. You ran for leader once. Do you want to be that person again? The person whom people look at and say, she is a comer. She's she burns with ambition. She wants to go as far as she can in politics.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just keep in mind, it was only about 8-9 months ago when I was going through a process trying to find out who I was by taking off the layers of being a politician, and then dealing with a mood disorder, being bipolar, on what is my mood actually like. These are some pretty big questions you have to confront within yourself. Like, who am I is not an existential crisis for me. It's my everyday. Am I the person that can't leave the chaise lounge because I'm depressed? Is it the person that can sleep only 3 hours and produce a ton of things? Am I, this politician that is a retail politician? Am I the fiery firebrand that everybody talks about? Like, I have to be true to myself. And right now, I'm in a process of understanding who I am, and that's because I have therapy and medication. And so I'm going through quite a bit more things than I maybe wanted to when I got involved in politics. So that's not fun.
Yeah. You see a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
How often?
During the election was definitely 3 or 4 times a week.
Is it helpful?
Yeah. I had a psychotherapist as well, and I have my family physician. My care team, right up until probably August, was quite frequent, and now it's less frequent.
Are you optimistic about the future?
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know what it looks like. I guess I'm going to rely on the goodwill of a lot of people to get me back up and running the way I normally would. And I'm excited for my daughter. I mean, she's going to my alma mater, St. FX, next year. She's doing very well in school. She's having a great year at hockey, and so that's great. And I know my family linkages have never been stronger, because I think I sort of said, like, 2 of the things that have been really good for me in the last little while is being able to fall into the arms of a very large Celtic family from Nova Scotia, and of course my family here, and then to be able to also hang out with a whole bunch of silly hockey moms that don't let me have an ego, but also don't let me get too drowned into my own, sadness.
You look like you want a swig of water. You want a swig
sure.
of water? Okay. You were in this studio, I'm trying to remember now.
Oh, geez.
We did a show called The Rookies.
Oh, yeah.
So this is going back.
Before I was dyeing my hair.
Well, I want to show you a clip from 15 years ago.
Oh, dear.
Because we talked about how bright-eyed and bushy-tailed you were back then, embarking on this new job. And here's what you told us about the job 15 years ago. Sheldon, if you would.
There are peaks and valleys in this business where you feel very good about what you're doing, and there's days where it's very frustrating. But I think overall, it's a 10. I mean, we're very privileged. There's only 107 legislators in Ontario, and I happen to be one of them. And it's sometimes hard not to pinch your cheek just to feel that you're alive and you're part of that. And so I think on the whole, I think the bad days don't even compare to what the great days are.
What's the difference between her and you today?
Well, young Lisa was right. I mean, it is quite a privilege to be in that chamber. We obviously have many more colleagues. I think we're up to 126 now. The peaks and valleys are right. I would say it was my resilience. I would say it was my own health. Because for many people, their peaks and valleys aren't as high or deep as mine. When I'm high, I think I can do anything. When I'm low, I can't move. So that's a big difference. Also, she looked quite young. I don't know if that makeup artist could come back.
What were you then? I guess you were, what, 33 then or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the olden days.
Yeah. You once told me you start every day with 10 gratitudes. Do you still do that?
I try. Some days it's harder. Yeah, I would have told you this probably before the pandemic, or maybe after.
In the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah, so I was, I used to write a letter every day to somebody, and then I was planning to do it for 40 days, and it went for about 120. And then I do a gratitude journal. When I don't do it, I notice it, and sometimes it could be as simple as, oh, they topped up my water. Oh, when they ran and they got, the tissue for me, how nice is that? And I find that helps me. Some days it's harder, and anybody probably going through, either depression or through bipolar, you sometimes forget what you're grateful for.
Let's finish up on this. You once said, your friend Tim Hudak said to you, Lisa, you've got a podium, use it. That's part of the reason you're here tonight. So let's use that podium. What do you want to tell people about struggling through mental health issues?
Well, it could be anybody, which is, I think, part of why I wanted to use my podium that Tim says I have, and to let you know that someone who you think is strong and can do anything and is capable could be sick. And so maybe let's not judge people. Let's not ensure that mental health, I love this. It's okay not to be okay, or health is, mental health is health. That's not a slogan for just one day a year. So I know that there's a day coming up. It's not. It's every single day. Mentor people. I think if you're in a position of leadership or power, you do have an obligation to bring other people along with you. They don't have to agree with you, but you really need to check in and make sure that those who are struggling get the type of support that they need. So in my particular case, my husband and I will choose when I can actually do things because we have to make sure that I'm in the right space for this. So today was obviously something that we chose to do together, but I'll make sure to mentor. I chose to mentor 10 people this year. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be working with a new upstart group in Ottawa on mental health called Dare to Be Vulnerable Project. And I want to make sure that I work with the Speaker of the House, Ted Arnott, in making sure that there are more mental health supports for members because, I'm not the only one. And I can tell you, they'll come over to me and they'll sit with me, the other members, when they're going through something. And there's a lot of lived experience in that assembly. Unfortunately, they just aren't at the point in their career that I am, that I can just be very open about it.
So you're not the only one suffering down there.
Not at all. No.
Is it because of the nature of politics today? Is that part of why people are struggling down there?
I think so. Like, people are going through a variety of different things. Their marriage may be broken up. They may have lost a spouse. They may have lost a mother. They may have lost another family member. I'm just thinking about some of the people. They may be overtired and exhausted from all of the work that they're doing. It could be the unrelenting unforgiveness that you get on social media. There are so many things that happen, and unless your resilience is completely 100% and strong. It's happening. I had a great conversation before Christmas with Mark Holland. Somebody, if you told me
Federal Liberal MP.
Yes. So if you ever told me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that me and Mark Holland would be on the phone, he and I both would have laughed because we were both pretty partisan. But we both recognized that our types of personality were targets for different people, and some of the same things he was telling me that he experienced, I experienced. And so I just think, look, I don't want to just say, oh, be kind, and then it ends. I just think we have to be very, very clear that that many of our political leaders are facing challenges and difficulties themselves, and a little bit more compassion will go a long way. And maybe before you decide to type something out on an email to the leader of the NDP, or you want to tweet at one of the cabinet ministers in the PCs, or you want to mock the Liberal member, they're going through something. And are you helping? Are you contributing to the debate, or are you knocking it down? And so that's where I sort of am these days. So who knows what the future holds? I just hope it's bright.
Mark Holland was very bold and blunt in acknowledging at a parliamentary committee that he considered suicide. You guys talked about that?
We did, yeah.
And you started this conversation today by saying that you had considered, I think you called it self-harm. Do I infer from that you have that in common with him?
So I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 71-year-old mother I need to protect. And those are my goals. But I can tell you, I was in crisis in the middle of an election campaign and ended up in the hospital. And I had great care.
And they kept your confidences in the hospital, right?
Isn't that incredible?
The word didn't leak out. No. If you were in the States, that would not have happened, I'm guessing.
and maybe not elsewhere. We're very lucky.
Lisa, keep on keeping on. And we're really grateful you could spare some time for us here at TVO tonight.
Thank you, Steve.
That's Lisa MacLeod, the PC MPP for Nepean.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.